Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi has represented San Francisco for more than 35 years. She is, of course, former Democratic Speaker of the House, led the House Democratic Caucus for 20 years, and Speaker Emerita Pelosi joins me now. It's great to have you here. I guess my first question to you, as someone who has started in politics from the time you were a child with your father as the mayor of Baltimore and know politics very well, are you surprised it has gotten this bad over there and it's gone this long?
Well, first, may I thank you for the opportunity to spend some time with you. What I learned in Baltimore from my father was how to count votes. That's always really important. And that seems to be something that is lacking on the other side of the aisle. Am I surprised? I'm rarely surprised in politics, but I do think that it is surprising that the Republicans do not honor the oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, to honor the institution in which we serve, and to respect the obligation that we have to the American people to get the job done for them. And so whatever differences we may have, and we all have our differences in politics within our party, vis-a-vis the other party and the rest, at some point you have to come to a decision as to how you're going to get the job done. You weigh the equities. I care about this, I care about that, but do I care about the American people the most? Do I care about my oath of office? Do I respect the institution in which I serve? That should outweigh any of the other differences that we all have within our parties or within the Congress.
I want to follow up on that, a little bit of shop talk from someone who is, I think, widely seen across the ideological spectrum by observers as one of the most effective legislative leaders of our time. You heard Saul Hill maybe talking about the sort of resentments that have built up, right? People are mad. These sort of, after each round, there's some new faction.
Okay.
How do you go about, on the Democratic side, where there is, I think, more of a shared governing vision, like stitching those factions together? What is your approach? What would be an approach of a leader who rises to the occasion to try to, like, get people over that sense of feeling angry or hurt or snubbed?
I would say one word which would define it all: respect. Respect, which leads you to build consensus, to come to a place where people weigh the equities and, as I said before, come to a conclusion that for this vote at this time, this is the right thing for our country. I also accept any compliment on behalf of my House Democrats who have the courage to make some of the difficult decisions that are needed to come to consensus on a particular vote and live to have another debate another day, but not try to win every fight every day. Pick your fights carefully, respect your caucus, and build consensus. By the way, I was down to 2 votes. I was down to 2. I was down to 2.
Yes, and we never saw anything like this, as many people have remarked upon. One of the things that happened today, which seems to me part of this, frankly, I find sort of entertaining, because it's just it's sort of funny to watch them. But something that's sort of darker to me is the fact that Tom Emmer's vote to certify the election, and any vote to certify the election to uphold, as Jamie Raskin often puts it, the constitutional republic, is clearly a red line for Donald Trump personally and the MAGA faction. And I wonder what you think the implications are for the country and for the House if that is the case, if that is a disqualifying vote.
Well, let's just look at today. Today you had the former president of the United States in court, his chief, as he called himself in his book, Mark Meadows, saying that he told the president that he was wrong about the election. At least that's what's represented in the press. The president's in court. The president's chief is getting immunity for what he has to say about what the president knew about the election. And you have the Republicans in Congress listening to a president in court whose own chief of staff is saying he was wrong, and they're using that as the basis on how they go forward. what I gained from that, what I learned from that is, to the Republicans in America, take back your party, the grand old party, a great party that made such a contribution to our country, with great leadership in so many ways. Again, who am I to be advocating for a strong Republican Party? But it's what our country needs, in addition to a strong Democratic Party and whatever other party that people put out there. But not to have a cult to really effectively a thug as the manifestation of the Republican Party now. The same day he's in court, his chief of staff asked for immunity, and they're following the lead of the person whom his chief of staff is asking for immunity to tell the truth about. Something's wrong with this picture. And I just think that if we can just get over this, and the Republicans can be their true self, their conservative self, not fringe element off the spectrum of where you are in terms of the role of government. They don't believe in governance. Understand that. So this for them is not any break in the action. They don't want any action.
Yes, exactly.
This is it. This is like glory, hallelujah.
They don't seem in a rush. They don't seem particularly, I mean, they're mad at each other, but they don't seem in a rush. I want to ask about one of the things, one of the pressing reasons there's a government shutdown that will happen. And obviously, as the president announced in that primetime speech, aid, right? An aid package to Ukraine and to Israel. Those are the pressing concerns for a policy agenda. I want to ask about the Israel portion of that, because we've talked about some of the internal factions in the Republican Party. And in the Democratic Party, I think there's widespread consensus and support for that aid package, but there are about 24 members who are now calling for a ceasefire and sponsoring as a resolution, concerned about escalation and what it would mean both at a humanitarian and strategic level. I wonder if you are having intra-caucus conversations about those concerns, if you share those concerns, and where you think the party goes next on this, the next step in this very, very difficult situation.
Well, first, let me just say that our priority right now is to get the hostages freed. I thought that what Secretary Blinken said today at the United Nations, calling for a humanitarian pause in the military action so that we can try to find a more peaceful path, and especially right away to get more hostages freed. Not just American, although that's our responsibility, but all the hostages freed. The ceasefire, I think the humanitarian pause is the appropriate way to go. Look, what Hamas did was barbaric in Israel. It was barbaric. It was outside the circle of civilized human behavior. And if it happened to your family, you would want justice. I'm not talking about revenge. I want I'm saying justice. So there has to be some other place we go instead of just saying, let's have a ceasefire. I mean, we had a ceasefire in May. That was broken by Hamas on October 7th. So let's remember that. But there may be a few votes in our caucus who may not support the package, but I think by and large it will be overwhelmingly supported. We just have to get a speaker on the Republican side. They won. They've got the confidence of the American people. Now they should show they're worthy of that confidence by at least electing a leader, a speaker, so that we can conduct the business of Congress. And that includes coming forth with this package and then keeping government open after that. But to your point, I think there may be a few votes against, and some of those votes have been vocal, but overwhelmingly there will be support for it.
Well, yes,
in
you're
the
right.
Democratic side.
The order of operations here requires a Speaker of the House before any of that can happen, at least as the rules are currently constituted, though who knows what tomorrow will bring. Congresswoman and Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you, ma'am.
My pleasure. Thank you.